All right, we'll go ahead and get started here a couple minutes early. Coach Miller, Justin Spears, you got your hand up. So first question, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach. I saw that Kerr Kriisa came back to Tucson last night. I'm just wondering if you had any update on his status for this year.
I don't have an update on his status, but he is here in Tucson and returned last night. Number one is, COVID protocol upon his return to Tucson. So that's going to take a number of days to make sure he's safe and protected, but also, our team and his roommates, et cetera. So that's number one. And number two, close second is just academically making sure that, Kerr is able to finish up the semester with the travel, although he's been able to stay up on his work, now that he's back in the country and the time difference is no longer a problem. We're anxious for him to be able to finish the first semester strong. And then, the next phase will be to determine his eligibility, which, like I mentioned last week, I don't have a lot to do with that. I got my fingers crossed for Kerr and his family that he'll be able to play at some point this year.
And what's the current plan for him? I know you mentioned all the protocols that he has to follow, but what's just the overall plan that you have for him right now?
In terms of health?
Is he going to be able to practice with the team even if he's not eligible for this year? I mean, what's that going to be like?
Yeah, so he would be able to practice. He would be able to, academically be the same as everybody on our team. And, this year, and, like a lot of our players on this year's team, our freshman class in particular, all of them, I think, are very good players. And but this is a year for each of them that I think the word development is key, that they improve, that they learn the college game, that they get, in some cases, bigger and stronger. And I would put Kerr in that same category that, regardless of the outcome of the eligibility part, Kerr's best days as a basketball player are in the future. He has a lot of skill. He has a lot of talent. We love him as a player. He's got a charisma about him that is contagious on the court. But as he gets bigger, stronger, older, repetitions, learning the difference between college basketball and FIBA, and there are differences, he's only going to improve and get better.
Jason Shear, you're up next. Go ahead.
Hey, Coach, just wondering, how do you keep the guys locked in with so much movement in the games and them not knowing really when they're going to play?
No, I mean, Jason, that's a great question. And, it's not exclusive to Arizona. I look at Herm Edwards at Arizona State. I can only imagine, how difficult that has been for his football program to have only played, one game right now. There's a number of levels to answer that question. First and foremost, I think we're about at 35 practices, and we've played only one game. You really have to understand that even though we've played one game with 35 practices, that's significantly different as well because, there has been no red-blue opportunity. There's been no scrimmage. In the past, we've played St. Mary's, which has been just really big for our team's development. And then, the in-person inside of McHale playing a very competitive Division II program like a Chico State. So with those three things missing, I think 35 practices, it is a grind. And I commend our team. Each year you learn the personality of your team as the days go by. But we have a group of guys that really love the game. Number one, that really helps us. I do think we have a hungry group of players. We have some returners, but for the most part, everybody is out to prove their worth as a basketball player. In James Akinjo and Jordan Brown's case, think about those guys. They came from different programs, and this is the first time that they've ever played for Arizona, so they're highly motivated as well. But we've not had any problem. Like, we don't have to beg our team to practice. Our guys show up. We work hard. Some practices have been better than others. Yesterday, we tried to go really hard. And I thought at times early in the practice, it was difficult, because for the first time, our team is able to watch a lot of other college basketball on television. And, you look and say, man, that's their second game. That's their fourth game. That's their fifth game. We've only played one. So for us, it's controlling the things we can, a little bit deceptive. And I think the other part for us, and this is a concern of mine, but we're also ready to embark potentially right now on playing 4 games in 8 days. And that's very hard. 4 games in 8 days. We're slated to play Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday, and then Saturday again. And although all of them are here in Tucson and McHale, when you've only played one and now you're going to play 4 games in 8 days, that's a whole different mindset as well. And I think from our preparation perspective, who we are as we approach tomorrow's game against Eastern Washington, not a lot's going to change on our end because we're not going to have the practice time in between games to tweak things or change. So we hopefully are going to be healthy. I know we have a team that's ready to play, and I'm hoping we can build on our performance against Grambling.
Steve Rivera, you're up next.
Along those lines, Coach, and I hope I'm not repetitive with this question. I would assume because of all those practices, you get better in practices than you do in games because everyone's involved, everyone's working their butt off, yada yada. So is there truth to that where you're getting better, except you can't show it in the game?
Yeah, no doubt, Steve. I mean, we pride ourselves in trying to do the things that we do as a basketball program. We pride ourselves in doing them the right way, practicing with effort and concentration. Not only practice, but film, individual film with individual players, team film of ourselves, film of other programs. It's not just the teams we're playing, but, watching San Diego State play, being able to show our team this year the way those guys are cohesive on the defensive end, their effort level, their talk, their communication, that defense is clearly important inside of their program right now. And, being able to show sometimes our team here, a team that necessarily we're not getting ready to play, but you can learn from them as well. You watch kind of Gonzaga move the ball and play with that fast pace and togetherness that they've become known for, just again, bringing to life certain things that we are able to maybe steal or just watch or teach our own team by watching other teams in college basketball. But, at the end of the day, it has to be a combination of game experience as well. And one of the things, unfortunately for us, because we have such a young group, an inexperienced group together, game experience for us is just monumental in terms of us improving. Sometimes it's just allowing a player to be comfortable, getting the jitters out, getting that anxiousness out of them where they're more sure of themselves. And the only way you can do that is, through the successes and failures of playing a real game and the consequences of learning from a win, learning from a loss. So it is a byproduct of practice plus games. And we haven't had games to this point, unfortunately. That is wholeheartedly about ready to change, though. The health, the well-being, the readiness of being able to play 4 college basketball games in 8 days will be a challenge in a much different way than maybe this past month has been. But, everybody comes to college to play in McHale, to play games. And I think we're obviously anxious and excited to have that opportunity. And hopefully we'll be able to play Eastern Washington here at noon tomorrow.
And if I could, Dana Altman talked about this earlier this week with his guys. This is totally different than what the kids have been used to for years, because it's basketball in school, and now it's kind of a big curve that has been thrown at them. So it must be tough psychologically, or maybe not.
Yeah, and each one of our players is different. I do think that, what are the positives of what's transpired here in our program over the last 4 weeks is we've had additional time to be here on campus. That allows our players to, I think, be really comfortable academically. With the COVID backdrop that exists for all of us, I believe that we've put our team in a really safe environment, as safe as we can create here on a college campus. And then, the practice environment, the strength and conditioning element, we're not traveling. We're not playing a bunch of games to this point. So we've had a lot of time to practice, to improve, and to be the most ready we can. But, kind of answering the same question again, you do have to play games as well. And you learn equally, sometimes even more, by playing against our opponent.
Thank you.
Bruce Pasco, you're up next.
Hi, Sean. Hey, do you know, in light of what you were saying about Kerr, is the isolation protocols, is that similar to when they came back in August? Do you expect to get him back in practice maybe next week, or kind of where do things stand on when you might actually be able to use him?
I can't answer that. We defer to the health and safety protocols. We were following the COVID protocol. Justin Kokoski, our trainer, Dr. Paul, all of the doctors that are affiliated with our basketball program and athletic department, they're the guiding force on how to implement Kerr. What I can tell you is that he's here in Tucson. I know you were curious the last call, Bruce, of is he going to come back? I can affirm and confirm that Kerr Kriisa is in the city of Tucson, Arizona, and he's back in the United States of America. He's not in Europe. He did return. That is something I definitely can confirm. And when he'll join us, and then will he be eligible? That's not for the coach to determine. And I'm going to coach the team. I'll allow that to our compliance office, and then certainly our team doctors and trainer to decide on when he can practice and move forward.
Okay, and I'm sorry, but you haven't heard anything one way or another from the NCAA, just to make clear on that as far as how that's going? Is it still kind of no word? Okay, and finally, would you mind updating us on Ira? Is he been back in practice, and can he play tomorrow?
Yeah, Ira has returned back to practice. He was cleared about a week ago. We've at the first obviously took it very slow, but in concussions, everybody kind of looks at it differently now in terms of the medical profession. I believe through sports, there's almost like a rehabilitation process. There's the rest, there's the being in a quiet light, being separated so that they can recover, but then you start to ramp up your heart rate and then take inventory of where a young man is. And then, you're obviously checking with him constantly to see, how his symptoms are, but he's passed all the concussion protocols. We've implemented him in slowly, but he's full blast. He's been able to practice, and he's practiced well. I think he has a freshness about him. And, like we talked about, what does Ira Lee bring to the table on this year's team? He's experienced. He's been in college games. He's been through seasons, the ups and downs. He's one of our most physical players on the rebounding end, both offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding, which I think he'll bolster that and make us better in an area that we need to be better in. And as Ira has a unique gift athletically where he can guard big guys that are on the perimeter. He can guard big guys that are in and around the basket. And he gives us much needed depth. So when a foul situation occurs, an injury, God forbid, we run into a COVID situation that we're more of a prepared, deeper group than we would have been without Ira. So I'm glad that he's available. He'll be able to play in this game, and hopefully he'll be with us from this point forward.
Thanks.
Jason Barr, you're up next.
Coach, did the schedule almost work itself out in a certain way? Obviously, nobody wanted to see what happened to Colorado with getting COVID and all, but you only had one game before a big Pac-12 matchup, and now you're going to get a few more games. Was that, I don't want to call it a blessing in disguise when somebody's getting sick here, but in a way, did the schedule almost work itself out for you?
Well, I think we were all concerned about us going from, game one, playing Grambling, and then playing Pac-12, Colorado, very good team, an experienced group of guys. But, Jason, the one thing this year, you just can't control the normal, usual things you can. And, I think with that, there's a certain level of adjustment. flexibility, innovation, where, how we motivate our team, how we coach our guys, how we prepare our team to be successful. It's different for all of us. Our schedule initially, our original schedule would have allowed us to play 3 games in a short burst period of time and then play Colorado in game 4. So, we lost that, and then we were getting ready to play them in game 2. And now, obviously, like I had mentioned, although we've only played 1 game, knock on wood, I'm hopeful that we can get 4 games in here in the next 8 days, which that alone will be quite a challenge for a group like ours, as young and inexperienced as we are, moving from one game to the next. And, hopefully the other part that I've tried to really take seriously is the conditioning level. Basketball is a unique game. If you follow, life, so many injuries happen when a former basketball player, he plays in kind of that old man's league, the 40 and over league. It's like, this isn't a game that, like tennis, for example, or golf, that you can play for a lifetime. And you see that former player now all of a sudden playing that older league. A lot of times they suffer a significant injury just because basketball is like start, stop, run, jump, land, and your heart rate is up. I mean, it is just it requires an amazing level of conditioning. And with us, I think sometimes when you guys ask me about the difference between practice and games, in our very best attempt to get our team in the best condition, any player will tell you that the game always feels different at the beginning. It's another level of conditioning. So we've worked hard without our games to put our team in the best position, to be in a great way physically, the conditioning part of things. But, that 4 games in 8 days will certainly be a challenge for us in that area.
Thank you. Although I'm pretty beat up from a tennis tournament last week, but thank you.
Gotcha.
Brian Peterson, you're up next.
Sean, you've managed to replace all the games that have either been postponed or canceled to this point. Can you go through a little bit about the process that your scheduling guys have to go through to find new opponents or change the dates? And do you also have other ones already potentially lined up for if, heaven forbid, something happened to Bakersfield or Baptist or Montana?
Yes. Ryan Reynolds is the person that works directly with me. And then, Mike Ketchum, who's, our sport administrator. And then, obviously Dave Hickey, our director of athletics. We are in concert with each other, I think in communication regularly on a daily, weekly basis when needed. But we're all in alignment and we're working around the clock. Ryan Reynolds, he barely sleeps. He's up to 3 and 4 in the morning. He's calling, college teams in Europe, Hawaii, the state of Washington. He's all over the world trying to line up these games, working countless hours, up early in the morning. But I would say that is his top priority, to just continue to be engaged with event promoters, administrators, assistant coaches, head coaches, his counterpart at the other universities. He talks with the Pac-12 office regularly just to make sure that we can play some games. Obviously, he's done a poor job here initially getting us games. I'm hoping that he can bounce back in the next week.
Now, you had a philosophy, I guess, of who you wanted to play for this non-conference initially. Now, is it a matter of if you lose a game, it's whoever's available?
Well, going back to this summer, number one, just talking with Dr. Paul, Dr. Porter, Justin Kokoski, Dave Hickey, Dr. Robbins. Number one is, just being able to back up what we talk about, and that is what is the safest, best bet for our players, both health-wise, but also academically with the remote learning. And then, the other part is what's best for this year's team and the student athletes that we coach. So, in some cases, we didn't really have a choice on whether we were going to play our original schedule because, the other team elected to postpone our game for a year, move our game. And then, you kind of looked at it. So for us, staying here in Tucson, growing, learning, having really good practices, being in a safe environment, and playing a variety of different teams that, will prepare us well for the Pac-12, that will give our team confidence. And then, knowing that a number of these teams could drop out. I mean, right now we've been fortunate, but I don't have a crystal ball. We've not experienced our own COVID problem that has cost us a game. That could come at any time. So considering that plus what our opponents are going through, I think all of us are just trying to get to 7 non-conference games. And if we can play the quality that we currently have on our schedule, then I think we'll feel good about the development of our team, the fact that we were able to get 7 non-conference games in, and then see where we can go with the 20-game schedule that looms in our future with the Pac-12 conference. Our conference is very, very good. I mean, I think we had 7 teams in last year's NCAA tournament. If there was going to be a selection Sunday, we were going to be one of those 7. I think that we have a conference this year that is primed to head towards that very number. We have a ton of returning experience in our conference. We have quality players, and you can already see here from some of the early results that a number of our Pac-12 teams are able to play national schedules and be successful.
Thank you.
Hey, I do want to make sure that in the spirit of time that I talk about Eastern Washington, the team that we play tomorrow at noon. And, they were a late addition because of COVID. But, man, I tell you, we're playing a really good team. They're the preseason favorite to win the Big Sky. Anytime that you return a fifth-year senior who's the preseason conference player of the year, like Jacob Davidson is, I think, he speaks for himself. Their team speaks for themselves. Really impressed with their coach and their coaching staff. They are organized. They're efficient. They're good on offense. They're very solid on defense. They have a style and a confidence that you could tell they really believe in themselves. We obviously watched their game against Washington State. That game could have gone either way. And knowing what I know now, that they were missing some key players against Washington State, it will be a real big test for our group tomorrow at noon. Their ability to shoot the 3-point shot, they remind you of that, round 1 game sometimes in the NCAA tournament, where you have an experienced, older veteran group. And they got some guys, Jack Perry, for example, their point guard. He's not a big scorer, but I don't know if we'll face a more lethal 3-point shooter than he is. And, they have a returning all-conference player, really tough matchup, Kim Aiken, who's, again, in his 3rd year, an all-conference player in the Big Sky that, he's going to force our front court players to guard a 3-point shooter, a driver, a true perimeter player. So, we really know we're in for a battle. I think at the end of tomorrow's game, if we would be fortunate enough to win, I think we'll really feel good about ourselves based on where our team is and the experience level of Eastern Washington. Again, this isn't a normal situation. We really respect them. And I think the quality of our schedule, this will be a team that will point towards of being a very veteran group that's going to have a successful season this year. But their coach does an outstanding job. And I have really enjoyed watching them over the last 2 or 3 days play the game. They really have a system and a style that is excellent basketball.
Rich Herrera, you're next.
Thank you very much. Coach, in that vein, would you mind commenting on Northern Arizona and then Cal State Bakersfield?
I mean, I got my hands full first with Colorado, and then that game got canceled, and then Northern Colorado, and then that game got canceled. And now trust me when I tell you, the opponent we're getting ready to play, Eastern Washington, they are an excellent non-conference opponent. So I really can't expand. Okay. I don't know anything about.
Well, you know what? I'll wait till post game to ask you about the next couple games. Then, if you don't mind,
I really won't know anything then either. Okay. I mean, it's I think you guys will see that we're going to move quickly from one game to the next. But I do know Eastern Washington. I'm familiar with them. We're trying to familiarize our team with them and their ability to shoot the 3-point shot. Like, they play a really frenetic, fast pace. If you're a top 20 tempo team from a year ago, I would say that their pace is very similar to an Arizona State in our conference. A UCLA team that maybe a few years ago that, that's all you talked about is how fast that they can play and how efficient they can score in transition. So Eastern Washington playing at a breakneck pace, shooting the 3-point shots early in the possession, and then once in the half court, having a unique system and style that's going to really pull our big guys away from the basket and force our guards to guard their man and be in the right position. It's going to be quite a challenge. And offensively, I think we're a work in progress. We're going to have to be efficient, and I think we're going to have to be better than we were against Grambling. We had 15 turnovers against Grambling. 4 of them came in just kind of like a minute and a half bunch. And, it's like you turn the ball over 4 times in a minute and a half, you change the game dramatically. So my hope is that we can cut our turnovers down, be better on offense, and be ready to play Eastern Washington.
Sean, so many people have talked about all the challenges with COVID and everything being so upside down. Have you found any unforeseen positive things that have come from your schedule being so different this year because of COVID? Practice-wise, player-wise, having more opportunities to work on things than you normally would have?
Yes and no, because your players aren't always available every day. I mean, this is a different setup. I would just say that, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're a media person like you guys are, one of the things that COVID does is it really makes you appreciate what you do. It makes you appreciate the sport or sports in general that you're affiliated with or that you enjoy watching. And it's never really been taken from us like this. So I think you respect the game at the very highest level. It's a reminder of how much you love the game of basketball. And then, from just an innovative perspective, all of us have to make changes that are in the best interest of being successful. So it's kind of dealing with these obstacles and adversity that you don't always prepare for. And then here they are. How you handle those times will say a lot about your organization or your team, maybe your coaching staff. So we're doing the best that we can. We communicate in a different way. We approach things in a much different way, but who we try to be as a basketball team will be very similar. And it's just a matter of we'll see how much we can improve.
Thank you very much.
Jay Gonzalez, you're up next.
Coaches, this is sort of along the same lines, but I just want to get a little more detail out of that. And, we've spent a lot of time talking about how the COVID situation has affected the players, but what about the coaches? You guys as basketball coaches have the reputation of living and breathing basketball 24/7. Where have you found the additional time, the additional ability to deal with all the stuff that has come with COVID, as well as just doing the job of coaching the team? How have you been able to manage that as a coach, and maybe, anything that you've talked to with other coaches about that?
Well, the one thing that's really been different for our sport is just the no travel, the no recruiting off campus, and the no official or unofficial visits. So, your recruiting is being done by the phone or remotely through Zoom. That's very different. This summer was the first time maybe in the, I'll just go ahead coaching for me 17 years that, you had more time to think about your team. You had more time to study the game, to maybe look at things differently that you do, maybe to reaffirm that what you're doing is good. And I'm talking about more of the tactical part of the game. We all have friends in coaching, and I had the opportunity to spend time, really asking questions from some great coaches and being on Zoom calls where you're able to learn the game and almost stop the travel and the recruiting and all the things that accompany college basketball and focus on the sport and the basketball part of things. So that has been very different. And I think we've tried to take advantage of that as much as we can as a coaching staff, me as a coach, to grow and learn, and maybe to bring certain things to the table that we wouldn't have done if COVID wasn't a part of, of our world. But I'm sure a lot of coaches have done that in all sports.
This is going to sound kind of twisted then. So would you say that in some weird way that all of this has maybe even possibly made you a better coach than having been able to do all that stuff during this last off season?
I don't know better, but I do think that all of us, we as a coaching staff, our staff at Arizona spent our time differently, recruiting in a different way, but we did spend more time talking about basketball and the concepts and the ways we go about teaching our players and the practice environment and really different things that we're going to, implement and execute in a game. I hope that we've been able to improve for sure.
Thank you.
Justin Spears.
Last week, an Arizona football player said, and he also had some Division I basketball offers coming out of high school. He said that he would like the opportunity to possibly be a walk-on or at least try to get a spot on the team. Now, I know you can't talk about him specifically or anything like that, but have you been open to the idea of having a multi-sport athlete on your team, and where's your stance on that?
Justin, I've really never thought of it. I'm not aware of that situation. And, obviously, whatever sport that young man is in now, that should be where his undivided attention should be the focus. But, I don't know enough to almost answer that. But,
sure.
If a multi-sport player and it worked with the other sport, then clearly I think all of us would at least be inquisitive to learn more. But we're pretty far along right now, and that's how I would answer that. Yeah,
sure. And have you ever had a multi-sport athlete? Have you ever coached one before?
No, I don't believe that I have. No, I mean, there's been times where a young man has talked about it, but it's not an easy thing to do, obviously, with the way that our seasons cross over. And men's basketball, sometimes it's forgotten. I guess men's and women's basketball, we're the only college sport that really deals with both semesters. I mean, and what I mean by that is that we have full seasons in both semesters. So it's hard. It's a hard sport to make your second. And I guess, if we got into dire straits,
All right, we'll wrap it up with Bruce.
Oh, Sean, I did actually want to ask you about Eastern Washington, so I appreciate all that. I guess the one question I had, and a quick one, just being as they do have all that experience you're talking about, and you're working together with a team that doesn't have a lot overall, was it a concern at all when you thought this was possible, like, that playing a team like this would be tough, or do you just kind of take games if you can get them and you can't worry about that? I mean,
no, I mean, you can't worry about that. The fear of losing, all that's going to do is allow us to lose. It's about play to win and be the most ready you can. We have confidence in ourselves. We respect everybody that we play. I have great respect for Eastern Washington. I think the results of their basketball program speak for themselves. Anytime you have a preseason conference player of the year, and then you have an upperclassman who's an all-conference player on the same team, you shoot the three-point shot as prolifically as they do at 5 different positions. I watched them with my own 2 eyes against Washington State here, and I know they were playing with a few of their players not available for that game, and what a tough game that was from start to finish for Washington State. Jack Murphy, obviously a former coach at Northern Arizona, coached against their program for 7 years. And although the coaches has changed, their current coach was a part of that staff and development. So he has a great level of respect for their coach, for their program, for their team, and he knows them well. So that's part of why I share that same respect level, because as we've watched them, I think we have a feel for what makes them good. But it is a very, very difficult game for our team. I fully expect a really strong battle tomorrow. Usually I say we're going to need our crowd to be the best we can. Unfortunately, those cardboard cutouts can't talk. So, that's the other part of this, learning to play in a quiet atmosphere. We've had one opportunity to do it, and hopefully we can be more comfortable in that setting than we were against Grambling. It is very unique for all of us when you walk out there and it's as quiet as it is.
And finally, this is also along the lines of, I realize you got to do what you got to do, but playing Colorado on the 28th now, potentially, how does that hit you as far as that's only 3 days before a potential game at UW? It's also close to Christmas. I'm wondering, with the protocols, does that mean maybe your guys don't go home for Christmas? And do you have any doubts about playing that game either way, being as it's close to the rest of the league?
Again, I defer to the Pac-12 office and, our athletic administration and, Ryan Reynolds, who's, really the scheduling person on our staff, that, we all have to kind of, do what's best for our players, health and safety, but we also have to, sometimes do some things that normally wouldn't be the smart move. Again, adjust, being innovative. So, we're not there yet, but, Thanksgiving has come and gone. That was different. I'm sure the Christmas holidays, that will come and go, and that will be unique for everybody in the world, not just our team. But if we play Colorado at that time, then we have to be ready. We have to be ready to go.
Do the guys are you planning to keep the guys here over Christmas the way things are going? Because if they went home, wouldn't they possibly have to isolate again or whatever? I don't know if that, or is that, I know that's getting far ahead of things, but I just didn't know what the tentative plan is.
We're in discussions. I think when you make a decision like that, it's just not like a black and white decision and spur of the moment. It has to be very well thought out. We have our county health officials. We have the university and the health officials that govern our university. You have Justin Kokoski, who follows all COVID protocols and makes sure that our staff and players do so as well. We're also communicating with the families of our players. They're no longer allowed to attend our home games. And, we have to communicate with them, and then certainly our own team. We have to make sure that those guys are in a good mental state, that they're also understand what we're trying to accomplish as a team. So we're just not there yet. Right now, our guys, week 15 has just ended academically here at the University of Arizona. Next week is what I would call a peak time. Final papers, final exams that are impending. You have makeups, extra credit opportunities, the eligibility, moving towards graduation if you're Ira Lee. You have that coinciding with playing 4 games in 8 days. So, plus our guys, they're up early in the morning, 6:30 every morning, getting tested for COVID. You can't hit them with everything at one time. And so much of this is to allow them to see each day for what it is, to help them grow, develop, to guide them through, and make sure that, even their mental state, that they're good. It's a tough time for them, for sure. Walking around with a mask on is enough to make everybody feel funny. Imagine doing that and then going through what I just described as a young 20-year-old being away from home or out of the country for the first time. So, we try to take things in steps and not maybe get to Christmas break just yet. Focus tomorrow, tonight, to this afternoon to be ready for Eastern Washington.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
We'll have Terrell Brown jump in here momentarily.